Today, they spat in your food. The four hurried, crooked words on a doubled cloth napkin froze Marcus Dean, a 46-year-old black CEO who had walked through countless Wall Street power casinos, the fork suspended midair. This was no longer about contracts or profit charts. This was about dignity. 2 weeks earlier, Marcus had received an anonymous letter. The Cradle, an upscale restaurant in Charleston, South Carolina, within the Dean Capital ecosystem, was accused of racial bias and suspicious kitchen practices. He didn't call his lawyers. He bought a bus ticket, put on a navy hoodie, dark jeans, worn-out sneakers. To see the truth, sometimes you had to disappear into it. The Cradle was housed in a restored antebellum mansion. Velvet drapes, gilded glasses, candles that made everyone feel 10% more important. On the walls hung portraits of Confederate generals, displayed without comment as if soft lighting could dim a sharp memory. The hostess, white, spine straight, smile clipped onto her clipboard, scanned Marcus's hoodie and scuffed shoes as though brushing past a minor risk. "Do you have a reservation?" "No," he replied calmly. "We're full, but we can seat you near the kitchen door." A table without candles, a menu placed down heavy. Manager Thomas Clay, hair slicked, smile practiced like a campaigner's, greeted every tux and gown table, but never once glanced at Marcus. Here, tradition was theater, and black people were mostly behind the aprons. The server who came to his table was Naomi Carter, 25, one of the few black waitresses on staff, moving with the quiet grace of someone who had trained herself to make no sound. Naomi had once studied law at Howard, but dropped out when her mother fell ill with cancer. Back in Charleston, she took the job at the Cradle. Most double shifts, the worst tables, the blame for every mishap. Her smile was armor, but her mind never stopped recording. Chef Rick Coleman's filthy jokes, Clay's narrowed eyes, the snickers when her tips were stolen. Tonight, when Marcus ordered the presidential prime, a $700 40 entrees Wagyu with rosemary smoke, foie gras, truffle potatoes, and a 2005 Staglin cab, $200. Naomi hesitated. The unwritten rule: suspicious customers ordering big had to swipe their card first. At the post, the screen flashed red, demanding manager approval. Naomi didn't call Clay. She swiped her own ID, override. One keystroke that dangled her job over the edge. In the kitchen, Naomi stood by as the dish was finished. Rick leaned over the sizzling steak, smile twisted, then let slip a quick, practiced streak of spit, as if adding seasoning. Sous chef Jake Miller laughed. Naomi went numb, her denial reflex lasting exactly one heartbeat. The laughter locked the truth in place. This wasn't first time. This was tradition. She snatched a white napkin, hand trembling, and scribbled, "They spat in your food. This place is not safe. Ask to see the kitchen cameras." 3 sentences, 3 arrows, fact, diagnosis, verification. No name, no signature, only truth. At the table by the kitchen door, Naomi set the plate, lifted the silver cloche. The rosemary smoke rose like a flawless performance. "Enjoy your meal." As she cleared the bread plate, her other hand slipped the napkin into Marcus's. No words, no eye contact, just the hope that the quiet man could read a whisper in cloth. Marcus didn't touch his knife or fork. He pulled the napkin out, read. What chilled him wasn't spit. A man who had audited failing systems had swallowed worse humiliations, but the words, "not safe," a verdict on a culture. Marcus folded the napkin, slipped it into his pocket, drew out a burner phone. A text to head of security. "Red flag at the Cradle. Pull back up kitchen cams tonight. Cross-check staff files. Fast, silent, thorough." Then he rose and walked toward Clay's office. "I want to see the kitchen footage, now." Clay smirked, muttered about 30-minute cycles, overwritten memory, upper-level approval. Marcus only raised an eyebrow. In moments like these, his silence was a ticking clock. The tape rolled. 2 minutes, 12 seconds skipped. Exactly when Marcus's dish was finished. Clay fumbled. "Must be a storage glitch." Marcus's voice dropped, blade sharp. "I'm the man who signs your paycheck. You get one chance to clean this up." The mask slipped. Clay's hands shook as he opened another drive, but the battlefield had already shifted. The decisive evidence wasn't here. Naomi, out on the floor, kept serving as though nothing had happened, because the real reversal was already moving straight into the heart of the system. That night, Marcus returned to the hotel in silence, a silence heavy with purpose. When the door closed behind him, an email from the security team was already waiting. Completed upload of kitchen camera footage from the cloud server, intact. He opened the file. Rick Coleman appeared in crisp detail, leaning over the presidential prime, spitting casually as though sprinkling salt. Turning, Jake Miller laughing loud. The exhaust fan muffled the sound, but one line slipped through. "Teach him how to belong here." Him, a black man in a hoodie. Here, a restaurant that called itself a cradle of elegance, but built that elegance by pushing others outside the borders of dignity. Marcus rewound, pulled the logs for the entire week. A black couple had their order delayed nearly 30 minutes. Rick hurled a steak to the floor before tossing it back onto the pan. Clay walked by, not asking why, but "Are we covered?" This wasn't individual misconduct. This was policy in disguise. Pre-charge if they look suspicious. Seat near the kitchen door, for those who don't fit the scene. Footage skip exactly when it mattered. All fused into an operating system. Smooth, polite on the surface, rotten at the root. 3 messages fired off. To security: freeze on-site data access, flag Clay, Rick, Jake for interview, preserve all logs. To legal: prepare to coordinate with authorities, prioritize chain of custody. To PR: no statements until I say go. That order, action first, words later, cut off the usual art of reframing, with excuses about technical glitches or a bad apple. The next morning, Naomi was summoned to the office. She expected Clay, maybe HR, maybe even security, but the man waiting was Marcus, still in the hoodie from last night, this time standing. "Naomi Carter," he said softly. She barely had time to apologize before he raised his hand. "You were right to do it, and you did. Am I fired? Not by me." He lowered his voice. "I own this place." Naomi sank into a chair. Marcus laid it out. Cloud footage, Rick's words, the week-long logs, the 2 minutes, 12 seconds of tampering. Then he set down 2 paths. 1, leave safely, with a scholarship to return to law school, or a new role elsewhere. 2, stay, become director of ethics and culture, rebuild from within. "Why me?" Naomi asked. "Because you did the hardest thing, spoke at the right moment to the right person," Marcus answered. "Culture only changes when those it hurt are invited to redesign it." Naomi exhaled, as if shedding the armor she had worn thin. "I'll stay." Meanwhile, Clay typed furiously, drafting an email about 30-minute overwrite cycles for the internal IT team, hoping to patch the story. But the patch line was already severed, cloud backups beyond the restaurant's reach, chain of custody bright as daylight. Marcus asked Clay to step off shift and call your lawyer. No shouting. He let order itself rearrange the hierarchy. Analysis of leverage. The 212 cut was the nail, not just evidence of filth, but evidence of concealment, far heavier in the eyes of the law. The napkin was the switch. Without it, Marcus would still investigate, but he wouldn't have the time stamp to demand the exact moment on camera. The minimalist language of power. I'm the man who signs your paycheck, ripped through performance, exposing a hierarchy built on theater. As Naomi left the office, she glanced at the floor. The table by the kitchen door was still there, bleach smell still puffing each time the door swung. But she understood. Today, the headwind had shifted. From cloud servers to legal chains, a new body was already growing bones inside the old shell. 12:30 p.m. Two unmarked SUVs pulled up to the steps of the cradle. Lunchtime for the white-collar crowd had just begun. Two plainclothes agents entered, no sirens, no flashing lights, no noise. They walked straight into the kitchen. Rick Coleman turned, looking for the back door. Too late. Sous Chef Jake Miller followed, then Thomas Clay. Three men who had once kept order were now led out under a different order. In the dining room, some sat frozen. Others offered quiet applause. Small, but real. Behind them, the chain of custody was handed over. Outside, a wooden podium was already in place. Marcus stepped up. He wasn't angry, he was framing. Yesterday, I came here as a customer. Today, I stand here as the owner. What I saw does not reflect the values of Dean Capital or this community. This is not about a bad apple. This is a broken tree, and we will cut it down. He gestured. Naomi stepped forward in a navy blouse, standing tall. This woman showed more integrity in one night than some show in an entire career. She unlocked the truth, and she unlocked the future of this place. This time, the applause was fuller, warmer. A reporter asked, "Will you shut it down permanently?" Marcus answered briefly, "We're not canceling the cradle. We're rebuilding it from the inside. And this time, it will serve more than food, it will serve justice." No repentance slogans, no teary PR video. A single statement would follow only after action had already spoken the essential part. That very day, Dean Capital launched the reconstruction track, a full audit of sanitation and processes from the ground up, upgraded cameras, multi-point storage. Operations paused while the kitchen was dismantled. SOPs rewritten from page 1. The Confederate portraits were taken down. In their place, a wall of faces went up. Black pioneers of Charleston, chefs, artists, entrepreneurs, activists. From hung as decoration, they became points of reference. So guests would see history standing beside them, not pressing down on them. Naomi formally assumed the role of Director of Ethics and Culture. At her first internal meeting, she didn't stand at a podium, didn't hold a mic. The chairs were in a circle, everyone on equal footing. She told the story of the napkin, not as legend, but as an operational flow. See, record, transfer, verify, act, then speak. She announced a third-party anonymous whistleblower hotline. Anyone tampering with logs would leave fingerprints. Silence is not neutral, she said. Silence is consent. On the legal side, Marcus wasn't pursuing punishment for satisfaction. He was pursuing precedent. When a culture of insult becomes procedure, the law must declare, a line has been crossed. Prosecution wasn't retaliation. It was a nail driven into the system itself. Spitting in food, cutting tape, mocking black customers, none of it was accident. It was engineered through polite language and glittering rituals. Analysis of public strategy, arrests first, press conference after. Reversing the logic of Polish first, act later. Legal action as subject, media as predicate. The broken tree metaphor. forcing public perception away from the comfort zone of a bad apple toward recognizing structure. Naming the truth teller. The best protection for a whistleblower is to make their role in rebuilding visible, not trap them in the shadows. That afternoon, Naomi went home with a thick packet. Bias training frameworks, simulation cases, round table forms, a new floor plan of the dining room. On her desk, she placed the white napkin, a copy preserved as a reminder. That evening, she still had her part-time law class. Between two worlds, the restaurant and the classroom, she had chosen to stand where the rules for both would be written. Rebuilding wasn't just repainting walls or swapping out china, it was rewriting the operating system. Naomi began by dismantling the equation elegance # decency. She rolled out 4 axes: 1. Signal architecture, an anonymous mailbox run by a third party, every access logged with timestamp account device, impossible to erase without leaving a trace. The purpose: see wrong, record it, survive after speaking. 2. Mandatory bias training. Not just e-learning videos, managers had to pass 3-minute scenario simulations, a customer in a hoodie ordering expensive dishes, the system flagging an error, a colleague dropping a crude joke. What do you do in the first 180 seconds? The answer had to lead to verification action, not gut feeling. Results tied directly to KPIs with real bonuses and penalties. 3. Feedback cycles, weekly roundtable meetings. Everyone got 5 minutes to speak without interruption. Rules: immediate, respectful, root-focused, quick feedback, no attacks, straight to systemic causes. 4. Community reflective hiring. The management team had to mirror Charleston's demographics. No longer one shade. Recruitment assessed listening ability and courage alongside operational skill. At the same time, the ethical infrastructure was redesigned. High-spec cameras, multi-point storage, data policies requiring full chain of custody for every edit, kitchen SOPs rewritten from hand-washing to plating. The pre-auth card rule was codified by objective monetary criteria, bill thresholds, rare wine requests, etc., and applied uniformly with auto-logging, cutting out intuition. Naomi and her team redesigned the floor plan based on light noise service flow data. The idea of bad tables was erased. The seat by the kitchen door was redefined as the witness table. Every new manager would sit there on their first shift, listening to Naomi tell the story of 2 minutes, 12 seconds, the splice that betrayed the truth. The team named the ritual the Napkin induction, not to glorify tragedy but to prevent forgetting. The photo wall pivoted. Confederate portraits came down. In their place, black and white images of Charleston's black pioneers, family chefs, street artists, small entrepreneurs, community activists. Each photo carried a short caption: their contribution, the origin of a dish, their link to the local supply chain. The menu no longer read like a stage of power. It spoke of fair labor and honest sourcing. Marcus added another layer: an independent audit team to measure the pulse quarterly. Wait times by customer group, complaint ratios, tip distribution, card approval logs, turnover rates. A dashboard stood in the conference room. Each number a story for correction, not for boasting. PR stayed silent except for one concise statement and an open community feedback line. On the human side, Naomi received tuition support to finish law school part-time. Not charity, but an investment in the gatekeeper of ethics. She built a cultural risk map: fragile points, posts, hot kitchen, VIP guests, each with an instant response protocol. For the new kitchen crew, she placed a handwritten pledge: no dish shall ever be used as a tool of humiliation. Everyone signed. The pledge hung right behind the kitchen door, the same place bleach once wafted through. One evening, Naomi walked a circle through the dining room, stopping at the witness table. She remembered exactly the tremor in her hand when she wrote 3 sentences on that napkin. Now, that tremor had been built into architecture. Anonymous hotlines, multi-point cameras, rewritten SOPs, live simulations, independent audits. When emotions pass, architecture remains. The cradle reopened. Candles lit again, wine poured again, silver cloches lifted again. But something had changed, intangible yet fundamental. No one belonged here more than anyone else. Dignity no longer lived in a guest's clothing or the size of their bill. It lived in a system's ability to protect the weakest from the instincts of the powerful. And it all began with a napkin, a quiet, courageous act delivered to the right person, in the right place, at the right moment. After her shift, Naomi headed to her evening class. In the margins of her civil rights textbook, she wrote, "Silence is not neutral." If she hadn't written that night, someone would have swallowed that humiliation, and the system would have hummed smoothly for one more day. That is the reality of injustice. It runs smoothly. It knows how to use beautiful rituals to hide rotten structures. To block it, you have to create friction. A napkin, a request to show me the camera. A storage rule that cannot be erased. A floor plan without punishment corners. Marcus hung a small frame in his office. No bad apples, find the tree. That spirit was the vaccine against the old narrative of blame the individual whenever the system cracked. The 212 splice wasn't just technical editing. It was a metaphor for every way society skips over the places it most needs to look. When you hear a story that sounds too smooth, ask, "Where's the missing 212?" and demand the cloud backup, that is, an independent check beyond the storyteller's control. The Cradle's playbook proved useful for many other organizations. Act first, speak later. Don't let PR replace justice. Let justice make PR unnecessary. Give roles to those impacted. Reform must include those who suffered, not be drafted in secret rooms and then announced. Measure to adjust. Numbers are not for bragging about strengths, but for finding fault lines. Rituals of remembering to live. The napkin induction wasn't macabre. It was the living memory of the organization. Late at night, Naomi stood before the photo wall. She looked at the black and white faces, smiling solemnly. Once confined to history's shadows, now they stood in the light of the main hall. Beside them was the table once shoved by the kitchen door, now the witness table. She touched the chair's edge, reminding herself, justice doesn't have to be loud. Enduring justice is justice with process. This story doesn't end at the cradle. It belongs anywhere tradition is used to legitimize ranking human worth. If you're in such a place, ask, "What is my napkin?" It might be an email recording the truth, an anonymous report form, or simply the words, "Let me see the camera." You don't need to shout, you just need to write it down and hand it to the right person. The final words are not a slogan but a guide. When you see wrong, record it. Find an independent copy, camera, logs, witnesses. Deliver it to the person with real authority. Protect yourself. Anonymity. Chain of custody. With evidence, act first, speak later. The Cradle today is not a restaurant that once had a scandal. It is a place that has injected into its walls, its procedures, its people, an antibody named the napkin. A napkin doesn't wipe away the stain, it exposes it, forcing the system to clean. And to make that happen, it takes 2 people, one brave enough to write and one willing to listen. Marcus listened. Naomi wrote. The rest whether in your organization, your classroom, your office, waits for you to pick up the pen. A napkin, so ordinary, was enough to shake a rotting system and turn a so-called elegant restaurant into the starting ground for justice. The story of Marcus Dean and Naomi Carter shows us that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's quiet, appearing at the right moment, with the right person ready to hear. So what about you? If you witnessed injustice right before your eyes, would you have the courage to speak up like Naomi? If this story resonated with you, hit like, share it so others can hear it, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more true stories of power and inspiration.